Right.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started. As I said, Ernie's got some internet issues.
He's
So
still in transit, so I just made a call to him.
okay, so we will get started though, I think. Um, and I'm going to share the slideshow. So James Gaughran is today's guest, New York State Senator here on Long Island. And we'll be, as I mentioned, the format is that we'll ask Jim some questions, we'll give him a chance to speak, and then ask some questions, and then open the questions to the floor. Also, Jim, I believe you have to wrap up at 45 minutes into the meeting, we were told. So we'll.
Yeah, there's another Zoom on the calendar.
Okay, so we'll keep things moving along.
That's my life, one Zoom to another.
Yeah, it's okay. So Jim is the state senator for the 5th district, covering the North Shore of Long Island. And he was the chair of the Suffolk County Water Authority before that. He served on the Huntington Town Board, has a JD from Hofstra Law, and a bachelor's degree from SUNY Stony Brook. And resides with his wife in Northport. So Jim, if you'd like to take a few minutes, we'll activate your camera again and give you the floor. Hold on, let me get that happening here. Okay, you should be on camera once you begin speaking.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for inviting me back. I enjoyed rushing out there in the past to your meetings, but I guess we have to do it a little bit differently, and hopefully we won't be using this format, for the whole year, and we'll be able to move things around and get back to being able to be together again. Thank you for that introduction. I've just started my 2nd term as a state senator. I was reelected back in November, and on Tuesday, I was sworn in through Zoom. All the senators raised their right hand, and we all had our own little box on the screen, and the lieutenant governor swore us all in virtually. And so the Senate session is in session. It's a much different Senate to a large extent than it had, than it's been in years. It now has 43 Democrats to 20 Republicans, which means we have a government now that has a large Democratic majority in both the Senate and the Assembly, and of course, a Democratic governor with Andrew Cuomo. And that's going to create some challenges for all of us, because I do believe in bipartisanship and working across the aisle. And it's also, going to mean that we're going to have to work very hard to ensure that obviously there's a lot of issues we have to resolve throughout the state. But one of my, major focuses is to make sure that we on Long Island receive the resources that we need. We're entitled to, especially starting with getting our state aid to public education, because that has a direct effect not only on our students' education system, but also on our property taxes. Most of this session is, I believe, going to be dealing with crisis management. Crisis management over the virus, as well as our economy. When we adopted the budget last year in April, we did not know how bad COVID was going to be. It was adopted on April 2nd, and if you look back then and you look at the charts and where we were, nobody knew that it was going to be as bad as it is. It has been. So we adopted an optimistic budget, not doing cuts, basically just using the same budget that we had adopted the year before. So there were no increases in spending, and then giving the governor the ability to adjust the budget downward when revenues have gone down. And we would have the ability to go back to alter that if we didn't like any of the particular cuts. Basically, there have been some money, a lot of money withheld by a lot of agencies and organizations, and including a lot of departments within the state. There technically have not been any cuts yet. He has just deferred payments, but we are coming into this year in economic distress. We have a $15 billion budget shortfall for this year. Our budget begins again on April 1st. We anticipate it's going to be even higher for next year's budget. So we're very much dependent on Washington to provide us with the funding that we need to try to dig our way out of this hole, because we can't print money, and we would have to, and while we are looking at revenue increases ourselves, we can't tax our way out of this problem, because if we taxed our way out of this problem, we're going to just make the economy and even worse than it is right now. As it relates to, but we are looking at revenue increases, including possibly taxing folks at the very, very upper incomes, possibly $5 million or more. There are some colleagues that would like to drop that a lot less, but the middle class on Long Island, and especially are the lifeline for much of our economy, and so people are hurting, businesses are hurting. My office has been very involved in trying to help businesses one-on-one to deal with some of the governor's executive orders, and I throw that out there because we're always here to help, and you could reach out to us if you need the help. I saw some note about discussion about the vaccinations, and there isn't much more I can tell you other than what is you are publicly hearing, other than we are very, very frustrated in terms of many of the issues involved with the rollout of the vaccine. To a large extent, that has to do with the lack of a federal policy, which hopefully will change in a couple of weeks, in terms of knowing exactly when they're going to receive quantities of the virus, how much they are going to receive. The health department, led by Dr. Zucker, Howard Zucker, who we met with the other day, again through Zoom, they're following the CDC guidelines that are established by the federal government. But part of the problem is that they don't know at any given time how many what their next allocation is in terms of quantity, nor when they are going to get it. And that has created a major problem. There also has been a problem with the pipeline itself within the state, and at the meeting, he has assured us that they're working on trying to improve that. One of the things that we're demanding is despite the fact that there's still uncertainty in terms of what quantity and when they are going to receive new doses, we'd like a little bit more certainty on a timetable for the various different groups involved. And also, there are a lot of gray areas which need to be resolved. For example, one that I still haven't been given the answer to is, what about clergy? I got a call from a rabbi, and trying to get the answer for him, because if you think of it, these are folks who are essential workers out, meeting with people in in their congregation, and and particularly these difficult times. I think for those who practice religion especially can be extremely important. But right now New York is still technically in the 1A phase, which is being done mostly through the nursing homes and the hospitals. It is for the public health workers that are dealing with emergency rooms and critical public health issues, and people in nursing homes and people that work in the nursing homes. It also involves a lot of people who provide medical services to those folks. The next 1B, which should start very soon, I am told, I also know to some extent it has already started, with the first responders. It includes our first responders, emergency medical technician, public safety workers, public transit workers, teachers, as well as people 75 and older. And that's where there is a hotline set up that I think maybe Mario, you could post in the chat the hotline that is set up where you will be able to, I am told, get some information, maybe even make a reservation, an appointment, but it's not ready, since it's not live now for this group, you can't actually make any appointment. And then, of course, following that will be the next category, 1C, which is made up of the rest of essential workers, rest of it, including any health workers that were not included in the first batches, as well as people who are 65 and older, or people that are less than 65 but have some chronic illnesses that qualify. And even there, we're still trying to get some clear answers as to how they're going to define some of the chronic illnesses. Then at that point, it will be a lot like what we've seen with the testing. It will be down to doctors' offices, clinics, pharmacies, and there's a lot of discussion, and I believe implementation of, once they get large vaccines, of trying to set up very large sites. I know some states are doing it differently, such as the state of Florida, but what I'm being told is they really want to avoid some of the problems they've seen in these other states, where all of a sudden, you announce first come, first serve, and you have 5,000 senior citizens online to receive 300 doses, which doesn't make an awful lot of sense. So the coordination needs to be improved significantly, but I'm hopeful we will get there. And again, my office is happy to help you with any answers to any questions that you might have going forward. In the rest of the session, in addition to dealing, with crisis management, we need to also work long-term towards trying to figure out how we're going to build back our economy here on Long Island and in New York State. There are a lot of issues that we're facing, including vacant storefronts, vacant office space, the remote learning. The remote learning for teaching has been, something that's still becoming, part of our daily life, which creates to a large extent issues for parents who can't go to work, who have to be at home. But also the remote working at home has led to a lot of businesses changing the way they operate, and that's having an effect on our economy, because we may not need as much office space. We also have retail store chains that are just shutting down, some of them permanently, some of them we just scaling back, which means we're going to have some commercial areas across the state and across Long Island where we're going to have to look at things like mixed-use development, including residential, because in some cases you're not going to replace these large box stores at the end of a shopping center, for example, with comparable retail, and that's going to hurt us with jobs if we don't fix this, and it's also going to hurt our taxation, because you're going to see a slew of tax certiorari cases filed, I believe, this coming year, because so many of these places have been half empty. So, but I am optimistic that we're going to get the vaccine. We're going to turn this around. There's a lot of people, I believe, with money on the sidelines. They're going to start to invest. So we have, in the government, have to make sure, number one, we're not going to get in people's way. We're going to allow that to happen. But the second thing is we try to find where we can build some incentives to help move things along. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. You touched on the first couple of questions that were on my list. By the way, we hear that Ernie is dialing in. We should have Ernie joining the meeting soon. But my first question, I think you sort of answered that you can't answer it, which is, can you estimate when we'll be at an acceptable immunity level with these vaccinations? I guess you said in no you stated, we don't seem to have enough information to even know where we're going to get there or how we're going to get there from here.
I asked that exact question of Dr. Zucker, or we did, a bunch of us the other day. And, we put questions in chats too, and try to get the answers. And he's not giving us an answer because he doesn't know about the supply line, and having sufficient doses and when they get them is the big concern. However, I think if you look back on the testing, the way the testing was rolled out, it just in the beginning, it was so difficult. And, people, my office would get calls, how do we get tested? Where can we get tested? And then all of a sudden, it worked out well, and then everybody could get tested. There were all sorts of different places and different tests you could go for. I think to some extent, the way I see this administration operate, including with when they reopen certain segments of the economy, they don't like to project, exact deadlines. They want to be a little bit more, I don't want to say in the dark, but they want to save the ability so that all of a sudden they surprise us, and we get better news. So I'm hoping that that's going to happen, that the pipelines will open up, and then all of a sudden we'll start seeing this flowing.
Well,
if not, there's going to be some changes. But part of the problem is, one of our alternatives is, do we legislate the distribution of this vaccine pipeline? And that's got to be a last resort, because I don't think you want politicians trying to figure out how to do this.
Dr. Fauci said early on, the virus sets the timeline, and I'm afraid that's still the case, even now that we have a vaccine. So you mentioned that the Democrats have a decisive majority. You have a Democratic governor, and then you mentioned the challenges that you expect. Can New Yorkers look forward to any new legislation and decisive action now that we have a unified, leadership?
Yes, absolutely. I think we will be able to resolve, a lot of problems that we have sort of, have built up over the years, but with a major caveat, and that is, we first have to get past this crisis. Okay, until we're fully opened as a society, and there's widespread vaccinations, and our health crisis has gone down, to more normal levels. Then we also have to address our economic issues. We've got to address our issues with our schools, because as much as I know our school districts are doing the best they can to provide the education remotely, and some schools are doing it with the students in person, some are doing it remote, most are doing it a mix. It's not the same education. I'm sorry, our kids just don't get the same education, through this technology, and and we know they're going to be behind. So we sort of got to get us back on an even keel. Then that's when I think we can really take advantage of what I expect to be a major jobs program / infrastructure program coming out of the federal government. And New York will be, I think, in better shape than just about any state in the union to be able to take advantage of this, because we will, we've got the need, we've got a lot of shovel-ready, projects that are out there. And that, I believe, will lead to not only funding for typical infrastructure such as roads and bridges, but making sure that we expand internet capability to everybody. We saw in this crisis, a lot of homes didn't have the ability for their kids to even go to school remotely because they didn't have tablets, they didn't have internet connection, which had to be dealt with. And there are many parts of our state that don't. Money for sewage treatment plants, for expanding, upgrading, building new systems. dealing with storm resiliency projects on our shorelines, which is big for me because my district stretches across a large portion of the Long Island Sound. State can supplement this. New environmental technologies will be a part of this. And I think with an infusion of money from Washington, which, it's similar in philosophy to FDR and WPA and the other alphabet programs, we in New York, I think, could be in best shape to take advantage of it and make sure that we do this is in a smart way, but quickly. And I think a lot of public-private partnerships are going to have to be part of this, because I think that's the best way we will build back better, which is the Biden slogan.
I have a question for you. I know you were a water commissioner, your previous position. And so recently we've been seeing some controversy about dioxane and whether or not it should be tested. And then we had this story about Dow Chemical, a consortium headed by Dow Chemical, essentially suggesting that Long Island stop using our own supply and look elsewhere, paraphrasing. But where do you see us ending up with this problem on Long Island?
Well, honestly, I think that's kind of extreme. There is no place else for us to look for drinking water other than our sole source aquifer. New York City is actually looking to, is fighting to try to build wells in Queens to tap into portions of the aquifer, and that we're using, and other portions that haven't been used in years, because there's not enough upstate reservoirs to bring water down for them. The only other alternative would be we would start building these massive desalinization plants all across our shores to try to drink salt water, which creates all sorts of environmental issues. Back when I was a county legislator years and years ago, one of the major things we did was we bought up the Central Pine Barrens. There is lots and lots of water there that can be accessed and could be actually brought in by aqueducts to parts of western Suffolk County if need be. But one of the issues is across Long Island, we have too many water districts. We have a hodgepodge of water entities, and the management of our drinking water supply, I think, will be much better if we're under one major regional agency. The Suffolk County Water Authority works a lot better than some of these smaller entities. Some of them are fine, but it works a lot better simply because if you have a small geographic area and you're starting to run out of water because your wells are getting polluted, your costs get excessive because now you have to treat that water.
What about this dioxane chemical in your experience? And again, you were a water commissioner. Is it an issue that Long Islanders should be concerned about?
It's an issue that New York State has now raised the standard, where it is detected in wells, it has to be treated so that it is virtually eliminated. And there are new systems that, in fact, when I chaired the Water Authority, we actually invented and developed and test drove for even the federal government the new technology system. It's very expensive. But the other thing is, where it is detected in wells and you can't put in a treatment system to meet the standards, you shut down that well and you bring in water from another well. Again, one of the reasons why you need larger, I think, more regional systems, because the cost will be more effective if people are you're basically sharing this resource, our treasure of drinking water, with everybody, as opposed to these little fiefdoms which exist in many parts of the island.
We had a question come in through the chat about the PSEG suit and whether it's over, and is there any chance of any of our 4 stacks coming down?
All right, well, there is, I guess you're talking about the situation in Northport and also in some of the power plants. There's in Glenwood Landing and then the South Shore of Long Island, because there's also litigation now between the Long Island Power Authority and PSE&G itself over contractual issues, revolving around the issues with Isaias. So you might just get a clarification of which of the lawsuits this is about.
The question actually specifically mentioned Northport PSEG suit.
Okay. Well, that litigation was the school board, Northport, the town of Huntington, who were both litigants in that action, and the Long Island Power Authority entered into a settlement of that this past year. So that issue has now been, resolved through a settlement. Although the settlement has created a lot of issues that we've got to deal with, and one of which is I'm going to be fighting to try to see what sort of resources we might be able to get, particularly the Northport School District that I represent, which is going to be difficult to do because when you have a $15 billion budget hole, that's tough to do, but long range, that's something we have to look at. But there still is litigation in Nassau County, and that it continues. Tax certiorari litigation that is still ongoing. My understanding is there is some discussions between the county and the Long Island Power Authority over that, but there still is litigation.
Hold on, we have someone, Billy, would like to follow up. I'm going to, okay, I think she's unmuted.
I'm all ready.
Great.
During the restoration process after the storm Isaias that knocked out electric service for a quarter of Long Islanders for up to a week and even more, PSEG Long Island demonstrated its inability to efficiently manage the storm restoration process and attempted to cover up these inadequacies through half-truths. They are supposed to be addressing the underlying technical problems now under tight deadlines from both LIPA and the PSC. Based on this history, what changes in how our electrical system is run do you think would have the greatest chance of providing Long Islanders with reliable and clean electricity at a reasonable price?
Well, that is a great question, Billy. There's a lot going on with that. First of all, there's no need for me in this call to talk about I think the total failure of both PSE&G and LIPA as it related to Isaias, because both LIPA and PSE&G have admitted that there are huge, that there have been, it was turned out to be a disaster. LIPA, which is a state-run power, but an independent authority with independent powers, they are now in litigation with PSEG over the contract that they have. They also, as well as the Department of Public Service, also have basically are now looking at making major changes. All of those changes probably, or any changes that would be implemented, probably would have to involve action by the New York State Legislature and the governor, and therefore reopening the Long Island Power Authority Act and making changes. So it's moving in various different directions at the same time, including with the litigation. Of course, I'm not involved in the litigation, although I've been, briefed to the extent I can be, by LIPA about it. But the issue is, do we try to renegotiate the contract with PSE&G, or does LIPA decide to cancel the contract with PSE&G? And then if you cancel the contract with PSE&G, and of course, obviously litigation will be a part of that, what is the alternative? Do you look towards just trying to bring in one service provider, which is basically the way it operates now, and see if there's another private electrical utility company that wants to come in and run the system? Do you totally municipalize it, which LIPA could do and could hire employees and operate the system that way? Or do you do some sort of hybrid where it's a municipalization, but instead of just having all employees operate it, you enter into multiple different contracts with different private entities to provide parts of the service? All of that is being looked at now by LIPA. But my belief is this is the obligation of the state of New York, the state legislature, and the governor to restructure this, because I don't want to see some sort of restructuring where we're just changing the names of who's on the trucks and the logos, and we're facing the same problems. Here's the basic problem that we have. The way our electricity is delivered to us on Long Island is pretty unique to the rest of the country. Most and New York State. Throughout the rest of the country, you have public utilities that totally operate the system with public employees, with direct accountability to public officials. In fact, sometimes the head of that agency is even elected by the public. Most of them are not there, but they're governed by local governing elected boards. Others, such as Con Ed and what we have in much of New York State, you have a total private entity who operates with a franchise, but then you have public entities such as the Public Service Commission, which has full authority to take action when there are issues in terms of regulation. Here we have a hybrid. We have a public authority, LIPA, that operates, but it doesn't have the same powers as the Public Service Commission to regulate. It has more recommendation powers, and the private entity, which operates more through a contract. So the real power that LIPA has to try to provide the oversight is basically threatened to withhold to a breach of contract, which apparently is what they've started already. So we've got to figure out what the proper system is, but it's got to be a lot better, because not only is this storm a signal that of the huge problems that we have there, but we also have to be prepared in the long term to implement towards a total different way that we are providing our energy, because the state of New York is now passed the Climate Act, where we're moving away from fossil fuel. It is what the rest of the country is doing. It's what the rest of the world is doing, and so we need to implement that as part of any restructuring of our power system.
Jim, this is Ernie Fazio.
Hey,
I want
Ernie.
to apologize.
Hey, Ernie.
Hi. I want to
Thanks for having
apologize
me.
for being late, but my internet service was had a big problem with it this morning, and we just worked it out. So I'll catch up with the conversation in a minute. But I think you already spoke about how we're going to implement the vaccinations. Did you speak about that already?
I spoke about it. I didn't provide any real new information, Ernie, only because I don't have it as well. Where there's a lot of issues going on with the way it is being administered. Much of that has to do with the inadequacy of a national plan and not knowing what volume and when they're going to get the volume. But we did discuss that to a large extent.
The next topic that's coming up in the chat window, and we have about 10 minutes left if you still have to leave at 9:45, Jim, is involving gambling, both online sports as well as Jake's 58, and cannabis in New York. Governor Cuomo has signaled that he would be consider online sports betting and cannabis. And I know that you have come out in favor of expanding Jake's 58.
Okay, so I'm actually co-sponsoring legislation which we passed in the Senate and didn't pass in the Assembly to allow online sports betting. This could bring in $400 million immediately, possibly move to the billions of dollars a year down the road. It is something that I don't take lightly because I don't think any of us should like the idea that we're going to be dependent in government on gambling, with problems with gambling addiction and mental health issues and economic issues for families that it results in. But there's a lot of guardrails that are put in place now to try to deal with that. But I think it's a necessary evil, and that's why I support it, because this is money that is just going to New Jersey and to offshore types of operations. It's revenue that we need to bring in. So the governor, for the first time, has agreed to support it. So now that he's agreed to support it, I believe it is going to happen, and it is something that can be implemented relatively quickly because there are plenty of vendors on the sidelines ready to bid to participate in that. In terms of Jake's 58, the county executive below has come to me and asked me to try to give them permission to expand the number of machines that they operate, and the video terminal machines. So I'm in the process of negotiating with them some sort of legislation to see if we can put legislation in for an expansion. Honestly, I'm, and the county executive as well, we're waiting for some more answers from OTB because we're getting, mixed messages as to whether or not they want to just do this to expand at Jake's 58, or they want to start a new facility in land that they own out in Medford, which, if we're going to do something, we want to do it. We don't want to have a situation where we get involved in, all sorts of land use issues and neighborhood battles, because then we're not getting, then we're not bringing in the revenue that we need. So there's some issues that we need there. The other issues that, quite frankly, we're looking at, and the county executive agrees with me on this, is right now the county isn't getting any revenues from the OTBs. And I understand they've been hurt like everybody else, but we want to see a plan from them to show perhaps how they're going to start to streamline a little, because it really doesn't make any sense to be investing all this money in an expansion if at the end of the day we're not getting revenues to the county of Suffolk, because of management. But they do have a new president who is strong, who I think will hopefully deal with that. So I think it is something that's going to happen, but there are regional issues with it as well, because we're not going to expand the number of machines in Suffolk County without also doing it in Nassau County, which is half of my district. And then, of course, we're still waiting for a gambling commission report that's looking at all of these issues to see, what we should permit, because you don't want to have the cannibalization of one venue, by another when you have, new gambling opportunities very close to each other. The other issue that we're looking at is there are 3 downstate full casino licenses that are now permitted under state law pursuant to a constitutional amendment that was passed several years ago. There's upstate casinos now that have full casinos, some of which with in-person sports betting. And we're not supposed to start downstate until 2023. One of the suggestions that we have that we're looking at is maybe we sell 2 of those licenses right now, and possibly bring in $1 billion of revenue right away for the state. So we may be, looking at that now as well.
Part of that question also was about legalization of cannabis.
Oh yeah, marijuana. I left out the marijuana. So the governor, once again, is, as the governor includes legislation in his budget document, and which, unfortunately forces us to sometimes vote for laws and parts of a budget that we're not necessarily in agreement with, but also that's part of the negotiation that goes on in any process at any level of government. So my main concern over marijuana is I want to make it clear that there are two, because it's going to happen in this state, recreational marijuana use. Number one, that we fix some of the problems we've had with the medical marijuana, and part of that was there wasn't. Give me 2 seconds here. I have a geriatric dog, and if I don't put him up on his little bench, he's going to keep barking. So the one big issue is we have to make sure that we have land usability, so that municipalities have the right to determine, where any sort of a facility is going to be placed, because I think that's critically important. The other thing that has to be included in the law, which was not in the prior laws, is giving the ability of law enforcement to properly enforce driving while under the influence. The sponsors of some of the legislation feel that since we don't have a reputable test like we do with DWI, with breathalyzers and with blood tests, and there are technologies that are working on that, but not one that's can be used uniformly and is actually accepted by any courts in the state of New York. It has to be a decision based on a police officer at the scene. And so many of my colleagues are very uncomfortable with the idea of allowing that, but I'm uncomfortable with the idea of people driving under the influence and killing somebody. So that issue has to be fixed, as well as the zoning issue. We also have to recognize, though, that this is not going to be a revenue raiser, at least for the first 2 years. The cost of implementing a adult use recreational marijuana system could actually cost us more money in at least the first year and possibly into the second year, because of everything that would have to be set up. But eventually it will start being a revenue raiser.
Jim,
I'm
just wondering.
One more question in.
I just wanted to ask Jim one question about the marijuana. It may be costly to implement. In the meantime, could we be a little bit more relaxed about arresting people who have been using marijuana? I mean, it's not all of one, you know.
Well, we actually, Ernie, passed the law last year that in effect decriminalizes it to the extent that it's now a fine for using marijuana, not for large sales of it, because that's different. But somebody just smoking, would be given a ticket, pay a fine.
So the final question, I think, is going to be from Bruce Miller, who is a trustee in Port Jefferson. And he's referencing your previous comments about shovel-ready projects and WPA kind of efforts. And he's pointing out that the electrification of the LIRR could be a shovel-ready opportunity. And he would like to know what you think of that, and might funds become available for that?
That is a great question, and it is something that I've been fighting for, because it has a major impact on my district, as well as going all the way out to Port Jefferson, because what goes on now is that in Nassau County, I have an Oyster Bay line that not a lot of people use, because it's it's infrequent trains, which we're trying to fix. So everybody is then going down to stations like Syosset, which are on the Port Jefferson line. My folks who I represent in Cold Spring Harbor, if they don't get to the train station before 6:45, there's no place to park. Similarly, with Huntington et cetera. So I would love to see the electrification extend, because it ends now in Huntington.
Yeah.
And the town of Huntington taxpayers is spending a fortune to basically build parking, a lot of which is used by non-residents. And
Mhm.
so before COVID took over the world, I have been putting real pressure on Phil Eng and the Long Island Railroad to give me an updated timeline on when we're going to see a full expansion of electrification to Port Jefferson. And I believe that could possibly be something that we could take care of with this infrastructure program. That all depends on what the categories of fund, programs are coming out of the federal government and the amount of money. But I will certainly, along with my other colleagues on the island, we will be really forceful if there's a major amount of new infrastructure money coming in for mass transit, that we want an expansion of that Port Jefferson line to be a part of it. Even if we're not getting a full expansion right away, even if it's done in phases, but we can start adding stations, with a master plan and a shorter timetable. Because right now it's still sort of pie in the sky on the MTA's master plan.
We have a follow-up from Bruce Miller, who asked that question.
Yes, Bruce.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you very much. Something to think about when the LIRR purchases new rolling stock, that they purchase stock that can run on electric as well as diesel. And we have a very substantial population from Brookhaven to Greenlawn that commutes to the Ronkonkoma line. This is not green. So thank you.
Yeah.
No,
Ronkonkoma is a
absolutely.
big-
You're right. That's part of our, energy and environmental, climate change plan as well, to try to have a moving mass transit system. Plus, there is also a proposal now to bring a station right to Brookhaven National Lab, where, where that major huge collider program is going to lead to a big expansion of development and businesses there, and having a train station right on site as part of that plan as well.
Ken, if you have a quick question, maybe we can fit you in.
Yeah, traditionally, we have the Pledge of Allegiance before the meeting. I think we should take 5 seconds out now and say the Pledge of Allegiance to continue.
I forgot the, you know what, maybe we can let, I don't know, Jim, if you have time to do it.
Sure.
2.5 minutes. Okay,
Pledge of Allegiance.
2.5 minutes. It's actually a recording
Okay.
of the New York Philharmonic doing the Star Spangled Banner. Let me just share the screen, and we'll all get to see that. Thank you, Ken, for reminding me. I was aware that I forgot. Ernie not arriving this morning sort of set me off my game, and I forgot to start out that way. So, Jim, thank you for your.
Do you want me to do the pledge?
Do we want to do a pledge as well? I think Ken misspoke. We usually start with this.
Oh, okay.
Star Spangled Banner.
Well, thank you all so
Yes.
much for inviting me, and I'm happy to come back. And again, feel free to reach out to us if we can, help you with anything, if you have any thoughts at all. Okay?
That's wonderful. And I think I speak for everybody on the meeting that we didn't stump you in any way, shape, or form. You're obviously up on your game, know the facts and figures involved of every one of these topics. And I'm in your district. I'm one of your constituents, and that's
Absolutely.
That's reassuring.
And I also see I have other constituents here. I see my good friend Peter Gaughran is on the call too. So thank you so much.
Thanks,
and
Jim.
thank you, Ernie. It's always great to come on. Bye-bye.
We reserved the last couple of minutes of the meeting. Ernie, I guess technical problems persist because we saw him for a few moments, but he's gone. So I'm going to also unmute Bill in case you'd like to chime in. But we have a new initiative we'd like to announce or discuss with our LIMBA regulars. And Ernie's back. And that has to do with funding. As we all know, over the years, LIMBA operated as a breakfast meeting, and the primary source of ongoing funding, although there was a membership fee, the breakfasts brought in ongoing revenue to pay the overhead. And we no longer have that. So what we've come up with as an alternative, and we're going to give it a try, is an optional opportunity to donate what you may wish, as well as the existing sponsorship opportunities to help keep LIMBA alive. Much like other online funding opportunities, we're hopeful that if everyone gives a little, that it can make a big difference. The needs are not great to keep LIMBA alive in terms of the money to keep, guarantee that 1 month to the next, there'll at least be something in the account. As we all know, LIMBA is unique in that we have substantive discussions with leaders from the region. Every other organization, I don't need to name them, but all of the other similar organizations are basically sales ops. We know that. You do not get the kind of opportunity that we just had today to ask one-on-one Long Island leaders. So we have created a new donate button on the website, and it allows you not only to make a one-time donation, but perhaps a small monthly pledge, similar to the way PBS does. Again, if everyone on this call were to only pledge $10 a month, that might be enough, so that at least we knew there was a couple of $100 in the checking account each month. We don't have that safety right now. Lynn's changed to her screen, so you can see here the button. And this is the announcement of the idea. We're going to begin to include it in our emails, and basically an initiative to help keep LIMBA alive, so that we continue to have this valuable opportunity to discuss issues. Ernie, now
By the
that
way,
you're
we
back,
have Jerry Kramer coming up in 2 weeks.
Jerry Kramer and his partner, they represent the dichotomy of political views, I understand, right?
Right.
Which would be very interesting because we've seen Jerry recently.
Yeah. Jerry is a former assemblyman, many years as an assemblyman. And he has,
he also, he also puts out a weekly newspaper also.
Sorry, Bill?
He also puts out a weekly internet newspaper.
I'm having still trouble with my internet. I don't even know if you can hear me.
We can hear you, Ernie.
Yeah.
We can hear you. Again, I guess, we have just a few minutes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to allow everyone, if I can figure out the right way to do that, allow everyone to unmute if they wish, because I would like to know how everybody feels about this new idea. Again, these are our core members that are on the call right now, of a voluntary pledge, donation, however you may word it, to help keep this going. You know, what are the thoughts? Did we all get an opportunity to unmute?
I
don't know if
think
did that
Bruce
right.
is unmuted, Frank.
Say that again.
I think Bruce is unmuted.
So other people have been, okay, so they can unmute. Again, you know, so now for the last few minutes here, we, you know, allow people to unmute, give us your feelings about that particular topic. And I guess also, by the way, let me point out that Mario from Jim Gaughran's office has just put the office number in the chat, 516-922-1811, and has invited our members to feel free to give us a call anytime. Thanks, Mario. I know Mario from my political volunteering. He's a great guy and a very competent aide. So what else, how do you feel about this idea? And also, do we have any ideas for upcoming speakers that we have members would like to suggest? Anita just made a donation. Boy, I feel like I really am on PBS.
Yay!
We need one of
Thank
those
you,
pledge
Anita.
boards.
Thank you.
So anyone else have any comments that they'd like to make about this new idea, or for that matter, an open topic? Again, Jim had to leave us a few minutes early, so we have a little bit of time left over today.
Frank, I'm not seeing that everybody's unmuted.
Well, I think they can unmute. I'm going to try it again. I don't think I can unless you see a way, Lynn.
Yeah, I'm going to individually ask everybody to unmute.
Yes, I believe that's the way it works. Ask all to unmute. But I just don't unmute everybody. So they can unmute if they'd like to speak. Anybody have any comments?
Sure.
For a few minutes? Go ahead.
Peter Gaughran here. I think getting some broad financial support is a good idea. My question is, which is better from your perspective? A monthly contribution of, $5 or $10 or whatever it is, or paying as you attend for the events you attend? Again, either a voluntary donation, a larger amount, because I don't attend all the meetings, and I don't think anybody does. But then at least you're paying for what you benefit from rather than for what you don't benefit from.
Right. Well, I think that answer to me, and I'm the person actually who made this suggestion at the outset, but my feeling was that some of us do show up every week, and so a monthly ongoing smaller amount is appropriate, and some of us don't. I think in terms of beneficial to the organization, a monthly contribution would really take a lot of worry off. Frankly, it's been Ernie and Bill's minds that there's not enough money just to pay even the smallest bill month to month. If there was, some lifeblood guaranteed by these small contributions, it would help. Am I right, Ernie? Did we lose
Yes,
Ernie?
you're right, Frank. Fernie's not there.
I'm back.
Yes,
Can you hear
Ernie,
me?
you need more money just for your internet connection. 2 cans in a string over there.
Let me just chime in here and say too that
All right.
that it's really to make people, I think I'm understanding your suggestion that maybe we put a paywall in to charge people money to attend. And we talked about that. But the issue with that is that it becomes a technical challenge for some people. And we really want the attendance to stay strong. And we felt that putting in a pay system to charge everybody money to come would really impact, the number of people that attend and also, you know, prove a technical challenge when we want participation. I mean, that's one of the greatest things about these meetings is
Yeah, in particular, the technical challenge, if you have to pay before you can start the meeting, people would have to know to show up 15 minutes in advance in order to execute
Yeah.
the payment.
right.
So even though I know how to do a credit card gateway, it just doesn't lend itself to the meeting format like this.
So what we're really asking for is if you enjoyed the meeting, just do what Anita did, is right after the meeting, you know, make a small donation. We're also working on improving the benefits for the corporate sponsors. You know, we didn't have an official corporate sponsor for today's meeting, but we've created a new sponsorship page with links to your website. And it's really, considering how many people go to, you know, these events and how many people read our emails that go out twice a week, it's an incredible value in terms of a sponsorship when you figure out who's being reached. So we're improving the email blast that goes out so that it'll now have links to the sponsors' websites. And we're gonna, you know, change that up a little bit, the format of that, so that we're doing a better job of promoting those sponsors in those constant contacts that everybody gets.
I can't tell if he keeps bouncing in and off. We do appear to be there, Ernie. Would you like to have the last word? A meeting without Ernie is not a Limba meeting. I think we can hear you.
I'm
Maybe we
seeing
can't.
him frozen, so.
Yeah. I guess he's still having technical problems. All right then. If there isn't any other topic, and it is just after 10, so it's the perfect time to end. I thank everybody once again. In 2 weeks,
Oh, there's Ernie.
we'll be meeting
Frank,
again.
I want to thank you for the
Ernie's back.
handling. Frank, I want to hand you did, you know, I was absent in most of this meeting. And, you know, we're going to resolve this by next week by going over to BIOS, which has a better pipeline. But this won't happen again. I promise you. And I want to thank everybody for sticking with us today. And Lynn and Frank, especially for handling this.
We did okay. Okay, thanks everyone. We'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Frank, are you in there? Can you hear me?
I can.